What's going on, guys? Nico here, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make huge EDM drops that sound like this.
Everybody come on, let's get down.
We're going to break down first the songwriting and composition, then we're going to move on to the rhythmic patterns and how I make my drums sound good with the rest of the instruments. We'll hit some layering, and finally we'll wrap it up with all of the big tricks to make your drops sound huge. So make sure you watch this from start to finish. Wherever you are in your producer journey, you will not only become a better songwriter from this video, but also a better producer. So let's jump into the bass line, which is really the genesis of the song. The big horns you hear on the drop is that exact bass line. So I have it here on a small piano, and what I've done is I've actually transposed everything to the key of C, which means we are only using the white keys on our piano here. So let's listen to this bass line and then let's break it down. All right, so what's going on here, guys, is we have 4 measures, and in each measure we have the same note for that specific measure with a unique rhythmic pattern. So I start off with our A here, and then I go down to a G, I have an F, and then I have a D. Now, the reason why this bass is really cool is because it's descending, and then, excuse me, it's supposed to go up the end. It descends all the way, and then it goes up. So one really good thing to note about bass lines is that you want to have some directional movement, whether it's up, down, whether it's down and then up, or whether it's up and then a quick drop back down. And if you look here, we look at the first and the third measure, the notes are different, but the rhythmic patterns are the same. Now, when we jump into measure 37 here and measure 39, these rhythmic patterns are also the same, but this one's a little bit different because on that last note, we take the D and we jump it up an octave. Now, from here, guys, we want to create the chord progression because the first part of the drop just has this. We don't know if the chords are major or minor. All we have is truly a bass line. And then from there, we create our chord progressions. So let's walk through this very quickly. I'm going to give you guys all my strategies on creating chord progressions. The first chord is an A minor 7th chord. So what I have to do to create this A minor 7th chord is first, if we're in the key of C, quick music theory tip, the 6th note is an A, and that is normally a minor chord when we're creating chord progressions in the key of C major. So what we do here is I want to make it an A minor 7th chord just to make it sound more jazzy and have more feeling to it. I use the 2-3-2 strategy. So all you have to do for these strategies is this. You take the note here and you count up 2 notes. So you go 1, 2, and then that next note. When we talk 2-3-2 or 5-2-7, it's the notes in between that create the chord. So we have 2 notes here, 3 notes here, 1, 2, 3, and then we go back to 2. Just make sure it's not too loud. Here we go, and we have this chord. So what happens next is we have a G, and normally the G in the key of C major is a major chord. I want to make this a cluster chord though, and what cluster chords are, I have lots of videos on this, guys, so check them all out, is we take right here this G, and we'd use the 1-1-2 strategy. So there's 4 notes in this cluster chord. 1, 2. So this is the cluster chord. It's a beautiful chord. But notice the notes are kind of clustered together, aka the cluster chord. A unique trip here is we could take this chord, and I use in Logic Option Shift up, and we jump it up an octave. Again, very unique chords. Again, I have a PDF down below, piano cheat codes that you can download, and there's 7th, 9th, and a bunch of other stuff. And the MIDI as well on the pianoforproducers.com website. From there, we keep going. We have our F here, which again, in the key of C major is a major chord. And I create it real quick. Here we go. And we already know the strategy for that. And then we're left down to the D. Now, normally in the key of C major, the D note right here is normally a minor chord you create. However, there are some tricks we have up our sleeve here, our very nice suit sleeve, and you can actually make the second chord a major chord sometimes and it'll sound good. You have to test it again, you have to test it, but sometimes we could take this minor chord and then make it major. So we use, again, a 3-2 strategy here. We count up 3 notes in between, and then 2. So let's listen to this now. And what I actually want to do is I want to copy this rhythmic pattern right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just look at them real quick, eyeball them, and try to figure this out. This one goes here. And you guys can be doing this along with me if you want. Whoops. Okay. So we go like this. And then we have the same rhythmic pattern. And then on this one, I want to make the rhythmic pattern. So bear with me 1 second, guys. Okay, so now it should sound pretty dope. Let me just make these same size. Okay. Whoops. Let's listen in. Now, last trick I want to show you is that you can take certain notes like this and double them. This is a really good melody trick as well. So normally you'd only hear one chord. I want to make it a really fast note and then staccato it like that. So here we go. Let's listen in. Now again, you could do a lot of octave jumping, taking your notes, jumping them up an octave. It's really just messing around, guys. Like, you could take certain notes, instead of making this an F major chord, we could have made it a cluster chord. A lot of variation going on. But anyway, I want to keep moving here so we get the train going along. So basically, in our drop, the main lead is this huge horn sound. And you'd be very surprised, I only actually have really one preset that's making the sound. This is from Echo Soundwork. It's a BR Trap Nation 1. Comment down below and ask me about the presets. I don't want to open my serum and crash my thing right now. So if we listen to this by itself, it's pretty big. Now, there's really no bass to it, and it's kind of a little distorted. It can be a little harsh, but I like it. We're making really big drops here. I'm not a mixing expert by any means. I do have background in it, though, so I can walk us through what's going on here. Now, this is really taking up space right here in this middle area of our EQ. And guys, when you have a drop, the reason what makes the drop so big is when you have your entire EQ covered, your whole section. I'm going to show you how that all works in this video. Now, what's going on here is we have our trap bass hit. Yep. And it's time to start layering and layering and layering this rhythmic pattern. So I have a cashmere stab here that I have a nice boost in the top end because I wanted to. And it follows the same rhythmic pattern. And again, you can take these off of Splice. And I thought it just sounded good, so I layered it. Now this stab right here is, again, ask in the comments for the presets, guys, and you will get them. And then this, I don't even know what this is. It's some Omnisphere preset. Now that one has a lot of bass to it, right? So you combine them all together. And what's this kickstart right here? Like, what's going on? Why do you have Kickstarter? So guys, when we have dance music, there's something called side chaining. So when you have the kick drum, which I'm about to show you right here, it is a cashmere Carry Me Home from Splice. We have, this is actually our top kick and then our lower kick. What happens is we need our kick drum to shine through in dance music because that's the gist of the bass. That's what shakes the room up when you're at a big club. And if we listen, now remember I talked about EQ. Look at the kick drum's EQ. It's all down here. So I don't want any bass frequencies to interrupt with that. And I want that and my sub to work together, which we'll get into a little bit. So what's going on here is that our volume is ducking a bit so the kick drum can come through. And that pulsing creates the very good dance vibe. Now, when we look at our kick drum right here, we actually have 2 kicks going on. Now I'm going to turn this off for a second and just focus on our kick. One of them is a top kick. So it had a nice click to it that I liked. And the one thing I will say is that, guys, you want to have your kick drums in the key of your song. Very important, or, you know, it's not always the biggest factor, but 99% of the time you should have it in the same key. Just my personal opinion. This cashmere punchy kick, the punchy kicks are great for big live dance music. And I have a nice boost right around here because I wanted to have more punch. All right, so that creates our kick and our big lead that's going on here, right? These stabs. And that's how really the idea starts. Now, I also added a little piano layer right down here for a little bit more added bass and texture down there. And you can listen to it by itself. And it's just a low piano that I have. All right, now here's the thing. If I was doing this, you know, a while from where I actually made this project, there would by no means be this many layers. And again, ask down below, I'll give you all the presets where I got them from. These layers right here, what I want to just go through is walk through each one by one and just showcase what's going on here. Because I have this layer and I'll just loop this thing. All right, so I'm not going to go through all these different layers that are in this thing, but what I will say is that what you can do when you're trying to find a bass is really just layer, layer, layer. Now I only need like 3 or 4 layers because I understand processing and mixing a lot better, which I'll get to in later videos for you guys. But the one thing I will say on your bass line, if you really want it to stand out on any lead, you can add this element of white noise. It just has nice sparkle at the top of it, right? Now, as you guys probably notice, I'm grouping a lot of things together. And when I group certain things together, there's certain things that I am doing. Like on these stabs here, for example, if we listen to the stabs without the group processing, this is how it would sound. It actually sounds really bad. Let's solo it. Now again, this limiter is adding a lot of volume. And what I also do for like sounds is I will bust them a little bit to sausage fattener and I'll turn the color way up and the fatness way up. It's just a sound thing. I don't do this all the time, guys, but use your buses. And all buses is you basically route the sound towards that certain processing, right? EQ, I'm just getting rid of some of the low stuff down here. This should be here. And I'm cutting the sides at about, you can cut it up a little bit higher, but that's how I wanted it. I'm boosting the sides a bit and we can get into stereo image in another video. But I have some EQ work going on, and then I have one of the ultimate plugs. It is the Shep's parallel particles from Waves. It has a nice thickness saturation right here. And again, it makes it a little bit louder, but I could lower the volume and you'd hear a difference. It's very difficult though. You have to train your ears for this kind of stuff. The last piece is a little bit of compression, parallel compression, just to thicken up the sound a bit. And ask in the comments, guys. I will answer your questions when you have them on these certain topics because this stuff can get very confusing, especially if you don't know about advanced processing. But let's go back to the more simple things in life. Let's go through the drum loops. So we talked about our songwriting, our composition. We talked about some of the sound design, some of the processing going on. Let's talk about how to get a nice groove in the drums, because if you don't have a good drum groove, you're in trouble. So what we have here, I'll go to the second part of our job, actually the last 4 bars, because that's where all, actually, let's walk through it as I go through. So we start here. It's a very basic kick. So we get a little groove going on, right? And what I've done here, and you can just check it out for yourself, is I have on our drum bus, ignoring our kick. We're actually missing a clap. It's a cymatics clap. We have a lot of echo sound work stuff going on. And then I just have different instruments. So after every clap, I typically have this bump, bump. Let's see what this is right here. And notice it's like kind of every other. I'm varying up the amount I'm using it. Let's see here. We have next. We have a little bit of a shaker loop going on down here. And guys, I'm panning it back and forth. So I'm using the stereo image to my advantage here. And I'm just moving the shaker up around a little bit. That movement makes it sound much more high quality and much more professional. And then let's see, we don't have anything else. Oh, we have a hi-hat. Let's see how that comes in. Groovy, let's see, the hi-hat. I have sample delay going on. This is known as the Haas effect. So basically what this is really doing is it's taking a sound that would be in the middle of my mix and panning it out wide. And guys, stereo image is a complicated subject at first when you don't get it. But the reason why people's music sounds so good is because they have a grasp on stereo image. They have a grasp on compression. They get how to use all these different tools to make a really good sounding mix. Now, something that you can keep in mind when you're doing this stuff is that with the stereo image, Hyperbit's actually a mentor and a teacher of mine told me to think about it this way, and that when you look at a stage, all these instruments are in different sections and they combine together to sound really good. So what I'm doing with the hi-hat, I'm putting it, you know, it's higher on the EQ spectrum. You look here. And I'm panning it out super wide to take up all the space in my mix. Now, let's keep on going here because this is where the drum group gets really intense and interesting. So this is in the second half of the drop where stuff gets really crazy. All right, so we got a lot of stuff going on. We got a lot of panning. Where are my toms? So I have one tom here that you're hearing the boom, the thuddy sounds. Let's find our other tom. I think it's right here. And I have two toms going back and forth versus each other in this part of the drop. And we just listen. Now I probably need to do a little more mixing to this, but what I've done is I've panned some things when the kick is not playing to the left and to the right, just to, again, take up more of that stereo image, take up more of that space, guys. And then I've added a bunch of shakers here. So let's just go through the shakers, and I got them right here. Now I got 4 loops going on. Some people say you're mad, that's crazy, but each loop has a different sound to it. First sound. You got these little hi-hats, and they're panning back and forth because I got Pan Man going on. I also kickstart a little bit just to give it that ducking sound. From there, what I do is I have these hats. Give it that nice organic sound, that nice good feeling. I have my shaker loop again, which we've talked about, and now I throw in a tambourine. So we got 4 different percussional sounds combining in here. And I have a little tambourine. And there's probably some automation going on. I haven't even looked at that. Let's see. I guess not. I guess I didn't do much automation. I just kind of brought things in slowly. Yeah, that's another thing, guys, you should notice. Like, every single 4 bars, I'm changing things up. I'm making things a little bit more interesting. I'm adding more dynamics to it. I'm adding more shakers. I'm adding more and adding more. And eventually you take some stuff away. Now, that's what's going on in our drums. We have our stabs. We have our bass. We have everything going on here. There's not much FX in this right now. We have a sub, which I'm not going to get into. And then let's see what else we got here. We got some vocal related stuff. Okay, that sounds pretty good. So let's just go through the drop real quick and I'll play through it and I'm going to pause when it comes to some stuff that I want to explain. So here we go.
Everybody come on, let's get down.
All right, so this is where it really like intensifies and takes up. And I think I may have raised the volume on something by accident, but regardless, I'm in headphones, so bear with me if the mix isn't perfect. We have 2 things going on with our pianos. Now the pianos sound great. There's a lot of layers going on here, and the main thing I want to focus on is going one by one. Let's see. Now you'll notice something when you listen to this. Listen to the pianos by itself. Now, I filter them in, guys, and as I filter in the pianos, what I'm doing with my other instruments is I'm filtering them out. Again, there's a bunch, you can just use your stock filter in Ableton, Logic, FL Studio, whatever you're using. But I'm filtering the stabs, those big horns. You kind of don't hear them anymore because I want the piano to be the centerpiece of the drop as a concert pianist that I am. So all these filters on the bass, they're all going down as the pianos come in. And again, this is what makes the drop so epic and so cool is we have movement of instruments, stuff coming in, stuff coming out, stuff being added in the percussion and automation going on. This is how you make stuff professional. You put the little details in. Now, the pianos sound good and there's a bunch of different layers. I have Omnisphere. I have, you can use stock plugins to make good music. These are just other ones I prefer. The M1 Korg piano sounds fantastic. And then I have some group synths on top of that as well. So the group synths, this is where the stuff gets real interesting because this stuff you're barely gonna be able to hear, but it makes such a crazy difference. And we're filtering these in. Now again, these all have the Kickstarter on them. They're all ducking when the kick comes in to give that rhythmic pulse. But what's going on here is if we solo this one by itself, this is one of the synth sounds. I have this going tremolo, so it's actually panning back and forth very quickly in your ears. If you listen. And it's just panning. It's like if I'm going left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, but this just automates it for me and does a really nice job. So then from there, what I do is I have this other lead from Ultrasonic Sounds, I believe. Love you guys. Here we go. Now this one's taking up a little bit more of the lower EQ. This one's taking up the higher EQ. And I also have I'm boosting a lot here. Again, I did this project before I really got mixing and mastering down pat, but it sounds all right. So I'm going to keep it as is. All right. And then this vocal chop right here sounds great, but when you look at the processing, it may intimidate you a little bit. All right, so basically I wanted to test out every single type of saturation plugin in the world and try a bunch of different busting things. So you don't have to do any of this. You probably just need to find a sample that sounds like this, which you can. This is how the sample sounded before I did anything to it. Let me unfreeze it real quick so you guys can see. All right, so this is before. And then I added all this stuff. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's freezing up a little bit here, but what I can tell you guys is that I'm using a lot of bussing in my projects. So I have this little vocal thing being bussed to a room reverb, a plate reverb, an echo reverb, a delay ping pong reverb. It's a very subtle thing, but it just has a nice element. I like adding it to the mix. It's going to, I don't even know what this is. What I also do with my leads sometimes, my buses, is I'll bus them to pitch shifting, like things like the sound shift. So it pitches down an octave, pitches up an octave, pitches up seventh. So I'm busting stuff to, again, make unique sounds. And I probably have, it's going to like Little Altar Boy, which is a vocal plugin. Yeah, I'm messing around with everything in here, guys. Like there's so many different things that I'm doing. And it's really just experimentation, right? I'm going to freeze this up again real quick before we play the drop again. But yeah, this is what's going on, guys. Like there's a lot of subtle elements. And the one thing I didn't cover is the effects and the sub. The sub is just a basic sub that I have going on here. It's nothing too crazy. It's playing just a rhythmic pattern. And then I have an exhaust. I can leave that on too. I have an exhaust by Cashmere, which is just adding some white noise. And what I also do with this exhaust is I tremolo. And then the exhaust, if you listen, I could do that. And then I have Kickstarter going on just to pump that white noise. So guys, that's our drop pretty much. That covers a lot of the things going on. I don't want this video to go for too much longer. I've been going on for a minute. But down below in the comments, you guys can let me know what you want. And again, like the video, subscribe. If you enjoyed and watched the entire thing, check out pianoforproducers.com. I have tons of free MIDI packs, just free stuff on there for you guys to get access to. So with that being said, let me play this one more time, and I will see you guys next time.